Good evening and welcome to the July 28th, 2020 meeting of the City of San Mateo Planning Commission. Would you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And would our planning secretary call roll, please?
Commission Chair Mallory.
Present.
Vice Chair Maldonado.
Present.
Commissioner Ebnetter.
Here.
Commissioner Etheridge. Absent. Commissioner Williams.
Present.
Thank you. And before we begin our agenda, I would like to read the reminder from the city regarding our physical distancing protocols. Due to the physical distancing protocols in place at this time, we continue to hold our regular Planning Commission meetings online and encourage public participation remotely. Information on how to provide public comment is explained at the bottom of the published agenda. There are two ways to participate. Join the Zoom meeting by clicking on the link at the top of the agenda. Use the Raise Your Hand button to be called on at the appropriate time. Phone-in participation can be done by calling 408-638-0968 with the conference ID number 813-4926-5395. Press star 9 to raise your hand to be called on. These options for public comment will remain available until the public comment period is closed for each specific item. We'll start off tonight with the consent calendar, which is the approval of the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting of July 14th, 2020. Are there any questions or comments by the commissioners?
I don't have any. No, I have none.
Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
A motion that we approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? And we have one abstention with Mike's absence. During the public comment period, members of the public may speak on general items of interest within the Commission's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda. Each member of the public may speak for a maximum of 3 minutes, with a maximum of 15 minutes for the entire public comment period. The Commission shall not act on or discuss any matters raised during the public comment period which are not on the agenda, but shall refer such matters to staff for review and or request such matters be placed on a future agenda. Are there any speaker slips for our public comment period?
This time I see no hands raised. I'm going to give our guests a moment to indicate they wish to speak. I do see one hand. Our first speaker is Chai. Chai, I'm going to unmute your microphone. Please confirm you can hear us.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. So I'd like to talk about the Concord Passage project.
Excuse me, Chai. Excuse me. That is on our agenda tonight, and I'm hoping maybe we can come back to you during that discussion period. Would that be okay?
Oh yeah, sorry. I don't know the rules exactly.
No, it's very confusing. We would very much appreciate having your comments during the discussion.
I'll wait when it's my turn. All right.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Are there any other speakers for the public comment period?
I see no more hands raised.
Okay, thank you. So we will open the public hearing. Well, I lied. We will have Rendell Bustos speak as our acting senior planner on item number 2 on our agenda.
Sorry, I was muted there. Just give me a moment to pull up the presentation. Just want to make sure you're seeing it okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair Mallory and members of the Planning Commission. Rendell Bustos, acting senior planner. I'm joined by Lisa Costa-Sanders, contract planner, to provide the staff presentation on agenda item 2, Concar Passage PA 2018-052. Excuse me, sorry. I'm gonna pull it back for a moment. There we go, that's better. So before we begin with the project details, I wanted to touch on all the milestones the project has covered and give the commission some context of all the work done up until this point. So from the beginning, in March of 2018, the public and the Planning Commission first reviewed the project in its pre-application phase. This phase consisted of a community outreach meeting and a subsequent Planning Commission study session meeting. Then the application was formally submitted in September of 2018, and that kicked off city staff review. And during staff review, the city and its CEQA consultant from David J. Powers and Associates conducted the environmental review process, which consisted of 2 hearings and public review of the environmental impact report. And most recently in June, staff brought the project back to the commission for comment on its revised design, as well as to the city council for direction on the development agreement and its public benefits. And lastly, here we are presently at a public hearing for the Planning Commission, for the Planning Commission's recommendation for city council action. So the project, called Passage, is a proposed mixed-use development consisting of 961 residential units, 73 of which are devoted to the very low income level, as well as 40,000 square feet of commercial uses, which would include relocation of the existing Trader Joe's, Peninsula Ballet Theater, and 7-Eleven. It also include over 4 acres of publicly accessible open space, as well as an on-site childcare facility, and extensive bike and pedestrian improvements. For some additional project data, the total square footage across the site would be just over 1.4 million square feet across a series of 5 podium buildings, as well as a standalone restaurant or food hall building and a standalone 7-Eleven. The project has some variation in building height, with 34.5 feet along a portion of the Concar Drive frontage and 54.5 feet for the remainder of the site. And all this conforms to the height limits prescribed in the Real Corridor Plan. This is an aerial of the site as it exists today, which is an existing shopping center on Concar Drive between South Delaware and South Grand Street. The total site area is 14.5 acres, and the site is zoned TOD, and it's within the Hayward Park Station overlay zone of the Real Corridor Plan. And it's worth noting that the Hayward Park Caltrain station is within 1.5 mile of the site to its west. This evening, staff is requesting recommendation by the Commission on 5 entitlements, the first of which a site plan and architectural review for the proposed development of residential and commercial uses, site development planning application for the removal of the existing on-site trees, vesting tentative map for the creation of 6 lots, supplemental EIR, which supplements a previously certified EIR for the Real Corridor Plan, and lastly, a development agreement for vesting rights for a 15-year period. So as mentioned, the site is zoned TOD, or transit-oriented development, which has development standards and principles found in the city's Real Corridor Plan. The project substantially conforms to the city's Real Corridor Plan in that it implements high-density land uses in proximity to transit and implements a site design that facilitates transit-focused uses. As mentioned, those uses include high-density residential, neighborhood serving retail and restaurant uses. In addition, the public improvements, which we'll touch on in the next slide, further support the use of transit and improve access to transit. So those public improvements include sidewalk widening and landscaping along the project's perimeter and within the project site in conformance with the city's pedestrian master plan. It also implements new bike lanes along Delaware, Concar, and Grant Street frontages in conformance with the city's bicycle master plan, as well as a new intersection at Concar Drive and a proposed private street Depot Way, and the mid-block crossing at South Grand Street, all of which are highlighted in orange. All of these improvements together provide an improved network of pedestrian access to transit. So just a bit on the design of the buildings themselves. Overall, the architectural design of the project is contemporary. The project's design was reviewed extensively by Larry Cannon of Cannon Design Group, by city staff, as well as the Planning Commission. Most recently, in early June, staff and the applicant's architect presented all of the design changes made since its initial submittal in 2018. As Larry Cannon notes in his final review letter, those revisions include more open space, more below-grade parking, and more design variety. At the June 9th Planning Commission meeting, a majority of the commission supported the revised design, and since then, the architect has recommended a revised color palette for Style 3, as shown in this image on this slide. As mentioned previously, the project provides 73 affordable units at the very low income level, which conforms to the city's inclusionary requirements and makes the project eligible for a density bonus of 32.5% on top of its base density. This allows the project to maximize the dwelling capacity, which furthers the goals of the Rail Corridor Plan of providing high density residential uses in close proximity to transit. It's also allowed the applicant's request for one concession, which is to locate all affordable units in Building 5 as a standalone building. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lisa Costa-Sanders.
Good evening. Thank you, Rendell. Lisa Costa-Sanders, contract planner. For this development, we prepared 2 different transportation impact memos, and that's been prepared by the city's transportation consultant, Hexagon, to evaluate the proposed project and its relationship to 1, vehicle miles traveled. That's the new threshold that's required by CEQA. The project, due to its density and proximity to transit, is exempt from further review under CEQA. However, Hexagon also completed an analysis of VMT and found that the project would not result in a significant impact. The second transportation impact analysis is based on the city's general plan criteria for level of service operating conditions at intersections. This analysis found that the LOS at several intersections would degrade based on the city's general plan criteria. Due to existing conditions, the city has initiated a study of the 19th Avenue Fashion Island Boulevard corridor. Preliminary analysis from that study identified several improvement measures that would alleviate congestion and bring the corridor back to an acceptable operating level. The total cost of these corridor improvements is estimated at just over $9.5 million. The developer's community benefit package included within the development agreement includes a $7.5 million contribution towards transportation improvements that could be used with this corridor project. In addition, the project is also required to pay the city's transportation improvement fee. As indicated, the project also includes a development agreement. Development agreements are contractual arrangements between the city and a developer. And in this case, the applicant has requested the project entitlements and vested rights be secured for a period of 15 years, as the project is proposed to be built in phases. In exchange, the developer is offering a series of community benefits that include on-site childcare facility, 4 acres of publicly accessible parks and open space, a mobility hub that would be open to the public, protected pedestrian and bike crossings, a performance theater for public events, as well as contribution of $7.5 million towards transportation improvements. City's consultant, Nelson Nygaard, prepared a transportation demand management plan, otherwise known as a TDM plan, for the project that results in an overall trip reduction of 36%. This includes a 16% reduction due to the proximity to transit and the mixed-use design of the development, and a 20% reduction due to implementation of TDM measures. The TDM measures include the mobility hub, protected intersections, subsidized transit passes, and a transportation coordinator. The rail corridor plan requires project-specific parking analysis, as was evaluated in the project's TDM plan. The project is also eligible to utilize statewide parking standards based on the state's density bonus law. The project applicant proposes a total of 1,572 parking spaces, which includes 244 spaces for retail uses and 1,328 spaces for the housing units. The parking demand analysis found a need for 1,205 spaces in total. The state density bonus law minimum for this site is 1,161 spaces for the residential uses. As I indicated, the project proposes 1,572 spaces, and we have included a condition of approval that the parking may be modified, but in no case less than 1,205 spaces per the TDM plan analysis. A supplemental EIR has been prepared for this project that tiers off the Rail Corridor Transit-Oriented Development Plan EIR from 2005 and the city's General Plan Update EIR from 2009. The EIR review process included a scoping meeting held in March of last year, public review of the draft EIR from March through May of this year, including a Planning Commission hearing, and then release of the final EIR on July 17th. The EIR identified several areas that may have a potential impact, but all of these can be mitigated to a less than significant level. The mitigation measures include protecting nesting birds during construction, a process if unknown archaeological resources are discovered, requirements to follow the geotechnical recommendations during construction, as well as methods to minimize noise impacts during construction. The project will also be required to pay a school development impact fee to address the potential impacts to schools. As required by CEQA, the EIR evaluated several project alternatives that include a no project alternative that would assume continued use of the commercial buildings with upgrades as well as new tenants, a development that's consistent with the rail corridor plan with more commercial uses, a mixed use alternative that reduces the number of housing units and increases the commercial area, and two reduced intensity alternatives, one that evaluates a 20% reduction in housing units and another that evaluated a 30% reduction in the number of housing units. The EIR found the adjusted mixed use alternative would be the environmentally superior alternative. The final EIR includes a response to comments received during the public review process, as well as minor text revisions. The public comments did not necessitate further analysis or identify any new or worse impacts. The final EIR, together with the draft EIR, comprised the complete CEQA analysis.
Thank you, Lisa. Bringing it back to the project's timeline and next steps. The next and final step of this application is that the staff will bring the project to the City Council for action on the application at its August 17th meeting. And given that the project is subject to council action, to conclude, staff's recommendation is that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council adoption of the supplemental EIR, recommend approval of the site plan and architectural review, site development planning application, vesting tentative map, and the development agreement. This concludes staff's presentation. The applicant and the applicant's architect are present this evening and will be providing a brief presentation. I do want to indicate as well that we have representatives from the city's Public Works Department, as well as from David J. Powers and Associates, again, the city's CEQA consultant. Also, I want to indicate that after publication of this staff report, city staff received a number of public comments, all of which have been distributed to the Planning Commission for their consideration. And lastly, just one revision to attachment 2, development agreement. Were distributed to the Planning Commission, and I'll defer to Gabrielle Whelan, Assistant City Attorney, to discuss those edits.
Hi, this is Gabrielle Whelan, Assistant City Attorney, and we replaced the copy of the development agreement that is in the packet because we had changed the formatting of the development agreement, and in the process we lost the internal bookmarks, and so we needed to fix that. And then we made some other minor corrections as well. There was a site diagram that was inadvertently included as part of Exhibit A, and it should be in Exhibit E. And then Exhibit F was modified to reference the correct index for any increases to the city's transportation impact fee. And that index is the engineering news record for the San Francisco Bay Area. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Rendell, would the applicant like to give their presentation at this point?
Sure, I'll defer to Brian Myers, as well as architect Peter Berger.
Great, thank you, Rendell. I appreciate that. Chair Mallory and members of the commission, my name is Brian Myers, partner with California Coastal Properties, the developer of the proposed project. It's good to be with you again. I know it's just a couple of months ago that we were with you talking about some design changes in the project. But since we had that workshop last month, and we've had over 40 presentations of the project to the community and businesses of San Mateo, we'll spare you of that detail tonight. I hope you're okay with that. Although Peter Berger from MVE will share with you a few changes and clarifications that came out of the commission's workshop a couple of months ago. First, though, I just want to thank the city staff and city manager and city attorney for all of the really hard work that's gone into tightening up all of the agreements that are before you tonight that obviously include the EIR and the SPAR package and development agreement. A number of those, as I know you know, on the commission took a lot of work here over the last couple of months to tie together. So I really appreciate, truly appreciate their efforts. Especially under the constraints of shelter-in-place restrictions. You have an extraordinary staff that's been willing to and able to meet under these restrictions, and it's really been helpful for business in town. We're really proud of the fact that we spent a lot of time in the community with surrounding residents and businesses and we're really proud of the fact that they were willing to take our meetings and meet with them in their homes in some cases. Meet with them in common places with HOAs, individual owners, homeowners, surrounding landowners, surrounding business owners, environmental advocates, transit advocates, bike advocates, labor representatives, schools, affordable housing advocates, many of which you'll either hear from tonight or you've already received from them letters of support. And we really appreciate all of their input because it has created a meaningful change in our plans as we proceeded. Because this is a large project, as you know, we were able to deliver community amenities at a scale greater than most other projects in the city's history. It's rare to be able to deliver a project of this size. While it gets a lot of attention, we also recognize that we have a responsibility to consider public benefit and true community building through a project like this. And we hope you appreciate that. There are a lot of improvements that we considered in this project that were not required by way of this zoning code or even the rail corridor plan. And some of those include items that were listed by EPS, the city's economics consultant, that estimated that total public benefit to be nearly $100 million, inclusive of the $7.5 million that Rendell indicated, which is dedicated to local transportation improvements and transit improvements that weren't required of the project, but for the development agreement. Those are directly funded improvements. We'll also be generating over 3,000 construction jobs that will be represented by highly skilled, well-paid labor through our union general contractor. Uniquely, and the first of its kind for residential project, the passage will also provide a mobility hub for public use that will organize and centralize transportation options and local mobility opportunities. We have an on-site daycare that you know of to provide for over 70 children and operated by the local YMCA, which we're proud of that partnership with them. We have over 73 units of on-site, we have 73 units of on-site affordable housing supported by the daycare operation that's in the same building, and also adjacent to, and not to forget that it's adjacent to the YMCA across Grant Street with a protected pedestrian crossing. Again, we think that relationship with the YMCA will be beneficial on many levels. We will have a home for a new community theater and a studio space for the Peninsula Ballet Theater, which we discussed in your last meeting, relocated from the current building on site. We have over 4 acres of public accessible park and open space. We have a home for a new Trader Joe's grocery market to accommodate local shopping for our residents and surrounding community. And we'll have an exciting new food hall concept called Seed, meant to be an incubator for highly skilled chefs migrating into the restaurant business. I think as we recover here from COVID in the future years, that'll be an important feature of this site. And we look forward to delivering that to the community. All of this in a community immediately adjacent to Caltrain, and the Caltrain station, with a stated goal to reduce auto trips, as Rendell mentioned, by 25 to 35% through the TDM measures, inclusive of a pedestrian and bike lane improvements surrounding the site. Lastly, we believe the community design, which much input from this commission and city staff and the city's design review architect, will be world-class, leaving a proud legacy for many generations to come. Again, I just want to thank city staff and this commission for continuing to partner with us to deliver a proposed project which with such rich features that all of San Mateo and its residents will enjoy. With all of that said, I just want to mention one other thing before I turn it over to our architect, Peter Berger, that we had some late interaction with corporate 7-Eleven. If you recall in the plan, we're relocating the mid-block 7-Eleven to the corner in a beautiful new Eichler-style building, and we're relocating them to the corner of Concar and Grant. We're having some issues with safe turning movements being simulated for their delivery trucks, both inbound off of Concar and outbound off of Grant. We recently reached out to staff, actually just today, and indicated to them, we think these are minor in nature, meaning they'll be fairly easy fixes. We're having a meeting next week with the city staff with those simulations that may require some minor widening to those 2 driveways on Concar and Grant. We anticipate these will all, again, be minor modifications to those features. And if the project is approved by the Planning Commission tonight, we would like to see those changes made before the City Council, and we did talk to staff about that today. I know Tracy can address that if you have any questions, but I'd be glad to answer any questions as well. And with that said, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Peter Berger. He'll keep this very brief and cover some of the questions that were addressed and comments that were made in the last study session. Peter?
Thank you, Brian. And yeah, I want to echo what Brian stated, that this has truly been a collaborative process between staff, consultants, the community, truly getting us to the best plan that we possibly have at the point that we're at. So I want to thank staff, thank the community, and even thank the commission for all their comments and input. And it's truly been a collaborative process. Really quickly, I just want to highlight two items that came up in our June Planning Commission study session. One of them is the safety and precautions that and the adjacencies that are actually occurring through Depot Way. If you can see my cursor on the screen, between our Arts Plaza and our Park Plaza, we have an exhibit that breaks out just what those details are, so we can show that to the commission. And the second item was, and Renda already touched on it, so we'll go through it really, really quickly, but we offered up a stucco color change to soften the starkness of the white color that we're showing in our Style 3, and I can show that in a quick exhibit. So we'll go through this really quickly, because I understand we've seen a lot of this. So the first exhibit really walks us through Depot Way, again, between the Arts Plaza and the Park Plaza. And what we've done here, and I apologize, these are not showing up sequentially on the screen. However, this is part of a bigger exhibit within our set that we pulled this from. So I promise we do know how to count. But so kind of as we're moving through this section, when you start at number 2, and that's really on both portions of both edges, of this raised section, we have a speed table that brings cars up to the same elevated level as the street. So just that instant movement is going to slow cars down. Secondly, we have a highly contrasting crosswalk that's indicated by this number 9. that you see in several locations, actually 3 locations throughout this area. And then in addition to that, on both sides of that crosswalk, again, all code related, code required, we have a series of truncated domes. And in addition to that, for added security to notify both cars and pedestrians in this zero curve condition, we're also introducing retractable bollards. So the truncated domes, I'm sure everyone's experienced those, but they're the small bumps in the pavement to let you know from a walking pattern standpoint that you're crossing into a vehicular area. And then obviously the retractable bollards are much more of a physical item. And then moving along here, we have a separate paver that actually, although it appears to be blended like this continuous plaza, it is different in texture and color. It's a unit paver that's permeable, and it also allows to carry the weight of a vehicle. So that's what's going to happen through this space. And then these solid lines that occur up against these green portions, yes, it's a zero curve, but this is where you're getting substantial landscaping. And this is not landscaping that someone is just going to be able to walk through or a kid's going to be able to run through. This is dense vegetation with trees that really is built up to be a layer of protection and barrier here. So yes, this can seem seamless and create a really interesting plaza-like effect that, you know, at certain times of the year, we can shut this down and really create this bigger plaza-like feel to the street. But from a day-to-day standpoint, the safety of this street and how this operates is truly going to be, you know, per code and from a security standpoint at the highest level. The only portion where we truly have a much larger, I would say, opening that's is really because we need vehicular access, EVA access, down this paseo where my cursor is here. So in this 7 location here, we have, again, a series of those truncated domes and retractable bollards, but that's where we really have no additional landscape or no additional measures beyond those 2 items, really from an EVA standpoint. So we did want to walk through this a little bit more diligently as it did come up from one of the commissioners at the study session. And then finally, again, this can be really quick, but this is what the original style 3 is, what we were calling, that had this C, which was this stucco color, which showed up in these cube-like forms. And one of the commissioners mentioned at the study session that it just came off a little bit stark, and we didn't want that to go unnoticed. And so what we've done in this session is offer up an alternative, a much warmer, more taupe color of a stucco color that, again, we still feel is very complementary with the architecture, but again, addresses the comment. We did not want to have that fall on deaf ears, and we wanted to be responsive because we thought it was a valid comment. So that's really the additional changes that I wanted to walk through. I'm happy to be here for any additional questions, but please just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get into a discussion with our commissioners, I'd like to read a recusal from Mike Etheridge. Commissioner Mike Etheridge will be recusing himself from tonight's public hearing agenda item. His wife is an employee of Holland and Knight, the law firm which is working with the applicant, albeit in a different practice group. Even though her practice is not related to the group working with the applicant, to avoid any perception of conflict of interest, he will recuse himself from this and any future agenda items which relate to the Concar Passage mixed-use project. So with that completed, I'd like to ask if there are any questions from the commission on anything that has been discussed by staff or the applicant.
Through the chair, I have a couple of questions. Number one, for the applicant, I believe the staff had informed us that all of the 73 low affordable housing units will be housed in Building 5. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And that building is part of stage, I believe, the later stages or the later phases of development, correct?
It is phase 2, that's correct, Commissioner.
Okay. And what was the reasoning why all of the low-income housing or units were placed in just one single building?
Yes, it had a lot to do with 2 things. One is that we have a better vehicle for financing through our nonprofit partners with a single building versus multiple buildings. I know you in San Mateo, you have a long history of that. Secondly, honestly, that we felt that the planning benefits of both locating the daycare in the same building and having it adjacent to the YMCA, which, as you know, provides for a lot of supportive services to the project, we thought was a strategic move that would be helpful. And we had that vehicle open to us through as was talked about earlier, through our density bonus exceptions that we had. So that was kind of an early on decision we made, Commissioner, and with our work with the nonprofit partners in town, we really believed as though they could be delivered at extremely high quality. It's the same quality of design. All of the residents will have fobs to all of the recreational amenities and community facilities of our project. So there will be no distinguishing between the residents. We just thought it would provide for better access for them for supportive services and for financing for the building.
Okay, thank you. Question for staff. It's indicated that the corridor traffic improvements is going to cost about $9.6 million, and the developers is putting $7.5 million towards those transportation improvements. Where is the other $2.1 million going to come from?
This is Tracy. So the $2 million is estimated from the traffic improvement fee, is estimated to be $2 million.
Okay, and that's the fee that because the developer is paying the 7.5 for the impact, but also paying a traffic fee as in addition to that.
The 7.5 is actually for public improvements, separate from the traffic improvement fee.
Okay, thank you. You stated that in attachment F in the document, I'm not sure what, it says that the developer has described that the child care facility is estimated to cost anywhere from $4 million. And that is in exchange for them to pay into the child care development fee. Is that correct?
Is this a question for the applicant? I'm sorry.
Staff.
Okay, sorry.
So the question is, what would be the child care development fee in relations to the $4 million that the applicant is doing in exchange for the daycare center?
Through the chair, I think in our estimates of the child care development fee, that would come in at $40,000. I'm not sure where the $4 million number is coming from. If you want to point me to the staff report.
It's under Exhibit F under impact fees. Item number 7, child care development fee. The party agrees to estimate construction costs of on-site child care in lieu of paying a child care development fee. So I just want to
Gabrielle, is that, it might be an exhibit to the development agreement?
Yes.
And it was intending to say that the value of the child care being provided on site exceeds the fee that the city would get otherwise. And so they don't have to pay the child care fee.
Okay. And also to, now that we're in this Exhibit F, in here it has no reference of any school impact fees. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, the school fees are collected via a different statute. And so the city's role in that is to make sure that the school, confirm that the obligation to the schools has been satisfied. But we don't collect the school fee on behalf of the school district.
Okay.
It is noted in.
Yeah, those are all my questions for right now. Let's see, I wrote down.
Thank you. John, would you like to go next?
Actually, I wanted to hear from the public before I pose my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, okay. Margaret, would you like to ask any questions?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Also, Commissioner Maldonado, I was just going to note that I know the school fees are listed as conditions of approval, and I guess I understand those are paid during the building permit phase, I guess. So I don't know. I did note that in the conditions of approval. So I have a few things I just wanted to clarify, and I don't know if it's for the applicant or staff, but I guess the first one I just thought of because we were talking about the reasoning for grouping the low income units together in one building. And I recall that we talked about that at the last public hearing and how that made sense for the nonprofit partner. And so I think my comment at that time was to be sure that, you know, the building worked with all the other buildings. And I guess I wanted to just address that again, even though I think we may have addressed it in June. How are the buildings blended? In other words, are they, can you just touch on that, even, you know, how they're, I guess it's for the architect, how the low income building matches or blends with the other buildings?
Yeah, absolutely. This is Peter Berger. So the style of architecture that's being applied to Building 5 is also being applied throughout the rest of the site in various locations. So you're also seeing that pop up on Building 2 as well. So we're not segregating, for example, a certain set of materials or a certain style specific for that Building 5. The idea is that it is one blend. You would never know. It's one blended kind of idea across the bigger passage site plan. So the same type of enhanced materials that are going on the other buildings are going on Building 5 as well. Similar window systems, all the way down to railing and deck details. So it's a very similar feeling building to the rest of the architecture.
Okay, I think I probably asked that last time, but
no, not a problem.
A couple other things. Based on reading the comments from the public and the letters from the public, I wanted to just confirm for the turn off of Delaware to go into Trader Joe's, what is being done there to accommodate the left turn? Is there going to be a left turn lane there for accessing that driveway?
This is Brian. Peter, would you like to address that, or do you want me to address that? And are you talking?
Go for it, Brian. I was just going to let you go.
I was just going to ask, is that a question related to a left turn into the site or a left turn out of the site?
Left turn into the site.
Yeah. So there are restricted lanes there. I don't know, Peter, if you have a chance to bring that up through the.
Yeah, I'll share it real quick.
That probably would be helpful. But there are restricted movements there. They're detailed in the plans. We also have to be sensitive to two things. Thank you, Peter. And I think, by the way, Peter, that we have a detail in the engineering set that might be helpful, if you wouldn't mind looking for that in case the question gets more detailed. But we have we have to preserve the ability for our neighbor to the west to be able to continue to exit their site with the left turns they make out of their site, but yet restrict the movements, the left turn movements coming out of our sites. You'll notice on Depot Way there, coming out of the site, that there's a right turn only coming out of the site off of Depot Way. And there's a movement of a right turn in at that point, but we do not allow a left turn into Depot Way off of Delaware. We do allow a left turn onto Passageway. And the reason for that is the Passageway, if you recall, as an entry into the Trader Joe's parking lot off of Passageway, as well as an entry off of Depot. So what we worked out with staff is to make sure that Trader Joe's was able to get a left turn movement, but we restricted any conflicts at Depot Way and Delaware.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for showing me that.
Thank you.
Let's see, a couple other things. You brought up the 7-Eleven building in the corner. And I may have asked this previously, but is that intended to be a new building, or is that reusing the existing building? I'm just curious because of the orientation.
No, absolutely a new building. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
And you'll notice in the plan set, I know the plan set's voluminous. It's a big plan set, but there is a page that's dedicated specifically to the elevations of that 7-Eleven building.
Mm-hmm.
It was designed as a single-story Eichler-style building.
That's right.
And it is a brand new building, and we're proud of that, to put that on the corner, because we think that's a very tasteful transition into the Eichler neighborhood to the north.
Mm-hmm.
And was frankly the only place on the site where we could celebrate a single-story building. So
Yeah.
yes, it is a new building. The existing building is quite old, and we're moving it from mid-block to the corner.
So you have the opportunity to address the issue that you mentioned about delivery trucks coming in and out, and still be able to maintain that, that parking kind of out of sight of the building.
That's correct.
If that means you have to
That's correct.
modify the dimensions of the 7-Eleven slightly.
It would actually only be a modification of the driveways that we're talking about in the width.
Yeah.
It would
Okay.
be minor in scale, and it would not affect the appearance of the parking of the building.
Okay, great. Yeah, because it's nice that the parking is, set in the back, very different than what we know of typical 7-Elevens. So,
Yep.
That's great. Let's see. Oh, this is just one minor clarification. So there's a reference on the drawings to future solar panels, and what is the status of that? Are they actually future and not part of the project, or are they part of the project?
Peter, would you mind taking that question? I don't want to speak out of turn.
Yeah.
We're actually providing things.
No, of course. So per CBC building code for Cal Green, we need to allocate a certain percentage of roof that can be used for solar. We're early enough along in the process where we want to make sure that allocation was made. If we actually, once the product develops further, and we just know that space is there for us for the taking, we're not committing to it right now, but at the same time, just per code, we need to make sure it's allocated, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that must be a Cal Green requirement for new buildings that
Correct.
I'm not aware of. Okay, great. That's all the questions I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And John, we're going to circle back to you after the public comment period. Is that correct? I'll assume that's a yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We're now going to open our hearing. Thank you. We're going to now open the hearing for the public comment. If you would please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. That will ensure that everybody will have a chance to speak. And I will remind you of the time limit as we get toward the end of the 3 minutes. And Erin, do we have speakers lined up?
Yes, we do. At this time, I see 6 hands raised. My first speaker is Richard Hedges. Richard, I've unmuted your microphone.
Good evening, Chair Mallory and commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm very pro on this development. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. You've done a good job of vetting everything out of it. I just want to remind you that we spent a lot of money on an acre of land that the city had to get to 68 units at Bay Meadows of affordable housing. And in this case, we get 68 very, very low, and then another very large amount of other below market rate housing. I do want to talk to you about traffic and make a suggestion, if I might. One of the things that I think we really should do at Concar and Delaware is to have a scramble intersection. I've seen them in other parts of the country. There are actually some in the city. You keep the pedestrians out of the traffic that way and actually give cars more time to pass and no interference from pedestrians in right-hand turns. The way it works is simple. The light changes, pedestrians walk in any direction while traffic stands still, and then the east-west traffic goes and the north-south traffic goes. And nobody affecting right-hand turns from the pedestrian side. I also want to talk to you about 19th Avenue. That's going to be a mess. And there's actually plans that we've talked to about the past city manager and the current one. And the development at Waters Park allotted $250,000 for a fix that will work very well by simply extending the right-hand turn to get those people out of the traffic that's going straight. And you can do the same on 19th Avenue. And there's a real percentage in this for the city and finance because of all the traffic in the evening, Bridgepoint has really suffered business. People just don't want to drive through the traffic we've had. We've lost 2 restaurants, and that was before the pandemic. So we really need to work on that traffic. And since we've got $750,000 in other traffic mitigations, there's about 5.1 times the units here. We got $250,000 out of Strata for the traffic fixes at 19th and Norfolk. So let's really consider that. Those suggestions I've made, and I wish you well in this. This is a very major and a very welcome development for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
My next speaker is Jonathan New. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jonathan New, and I'm a homeowner here in San Mateo. I'm strongly in favor of this project. We have a huge housing supply shortage, and these homes are sorely needed. The site contains groceries, restaurants, green space with easy access to parks, jobs, and Caltrain. And having so many amenities within a short distance really helps to eliminate the need for a car. I love that we're making this neighborhood more walkable, bikeable, and transit friendly, and consequently more sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
My next speaker is Richard Neve. Oh, oops.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Commissioners, thanks very much for your service. I appreciate it. My name is Richard Neve. I'm the Civics Director for Fiesta Gardens Homeowners Association. Of course, Fiesta Gardens is right on the footprint of this development, so we're obviously very concerned about the impact it's going to have on our neighborhood. Just wanted to make one thing kind of clearer from Lisa Costa's remarks on the 19th Avenue Fashion Island Boulevard improvement plan, and how the money is going to be allocated towards that. Is that this is actually part of a traffic action plan we've been working with the city on for more than 3 years now. This plan is actually in place there to mitigate existing problems, which have come from the increased number of cars coming through our neighborhood. We've got Station Park Green, which hasn't even been finished yet. We have no idea what the impact of that plus passages is going to be in addition to what's already going on 19th Avenue. So we would like to actually think about this money as being put in reserve for future mitigation of the impact that this will have on our area, and actually have the city fund, as they were intended to, the existing plans, which are the ones that were laid out to you. I think we need to be very careful about understanding what the future impact is going to be on our neighborhoods. We're very concerned about, especially this corridor. And I think we would actually like to have a hand in helping you guys and really working together in a cooperative manner to build plans and really think about what is a good way of improving traffic flow. And, maybe even options that don't even make it easier for lots of people to sit in cars and go through that, but actually think about more sort of mass transit type oriented ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I was muted. My next speaker is Adam Lorraine. Go ahead, Adam.
Thank you, Erin, and good evening, commissioners and staff. My name is Adam Lorraine. I am a 20-ish year resident of the city of San Mateo. I also am now pleased to report I am a sustainability and infrastructure commissioner with the city, but I am speaking as a private citizen and not as a representative of that commission tonight. I just wished to give my support for this proposal, this project, and I felt that the comments of Mr. New were very close to mine, so I will just echo them by saying +1 to those, and reiterate that transit-oriented development is very important. I was with you a couple weeks back when the Mid-Penn development was up for your approval, and I felt that that was the best project the city has seen in years since I've been coming to Planning Commission meetings. This might be the second best. and only really because, of course, the other development is all affordable. But this is also doing a lot of good work, as was mentioned before, toward some of our major goals. And really the first development to have Class 4 bike lanes, I think, come with it. That's wonderful. And so a lot of the amenities we saw today will be well used, I think. Thank you very much for your work on this.
Thank you, Adam.
My next speaker is Evelyn Stevens. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Evelyn Stevens. I'm the Executive Director of Housing Leadership Council of San Mateo County. Thank you for your thoughtful deliberation and feedback on this project. I think you've made some great improvements to it. We fully support it. Thank you. One thing that we've learned during this pandemic is housing is healthcare, and it is really critical that we provide quality homes for a variety of housing that people at different income levels and create a more inclusive community. So thank you for your work on this, and I look forward to seeing the actual project.
Thank you.
My next speaker is Chai. Go ahead.
Hi. Hi there again. So my name is Chai. I live right on the Concord Drive, so it's directly north of the project, and I represent 30 households along the Concord Drive and South Delaware Straits, who are really closest to the construction site, and I believe that we are the people who will be most affected. I'm quite surprised by all the positivities in the comments so far, because none of these 30 households that I've spoken to is very excited about this project. So our concerns are manifold, but I also understand, there is a housing crisis, and we should do our best to help. So our main comments, two main issues I'll address today are noises and privacy concerns. Now, just to give you a history of what we've been doing, so on 11th April last year, so we signed, these around 30 households, we signed a petition to the city to build a sound wall around the 19th Avenue Park. So that's a community right north alongside the Concord Drive. And on September 18th last year, we had a meeting with the planning committee headed by Mr. Munekawa, where we concluded the meeting with two new research items to the sound report. One is to determine that whether there is a sound problem along Concord Drive and South Delaware, and whether a sound wall will help. Now, forward to the 10th of March, we reached out to Munekawa, who apparently has retired, and Rodrigo Oduna replied with, the noise study will be released next week. I copied two planners, Mr. Bustos and Ms. Costa Sanders, who I believe are present in this meeting, in charge of the Concord project. They will be sure to notify you of the release of the study next week. So that never happened, unfortunately. So we didn't receive the study. So we believed, okay, because of when the pandemic happened, we believe, okay, maybe the project was put on hold. So we waited, fast forward last week, we finally received the report, which essentially said that our noise level is at 71 decibel, way above the 45 decibel that's considered acceptable. In fact, anything beyond 70 is considered unacceptable by the city. So essentially, then I reached out to Mr. Bustos, who is a little bit reluctant to help us. And he's basically said that, it's already so noisy around our neighborhood, just adding a little bit more noise doesn't hurt. So what I'm asking here is really common sense. I know that you are not obligated to do anything. You are not obligated to help us build a wall, nor building, improving the traffic.
Excuse me, Chai, if you would bring your comments to a close, please.
Sure. So we want the improving traffic is not it's not an or relationship, whether to help us build a sound wall along Concord Drive and South Delaware, or to improve the traffic, We can improve the traffic. That costs around $10 million, but we can take some money from that to help us with the sound problems. So I was hoping to have a discussion, but yeah, we can have a discussion offline after this comment.
Thank you.
My next speaker is Kelsey Baines.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Kelsey Baines. I'm with Peninsula for Everyone. We are a pro-housing advocacy group of neighbors advocating for more neighbors. We support more homes at all income levels and are in strong support of this project. It's nothing new that we have a dire housing shortage in this county, but I think COVID has really brought these problems to light in a more dramatic way. So many residents in our communities are being burdened by rents despite having lowered or eliminated income right now. We also have people who are still super commuting to serve in our communities. And we have people who are living in overcrowded conditions, which we know make those residents unsafe, as well as the general public unsafe. I don't know how many of you saw the recent city council meeting where they were looking at the red tag ordinance, and there were something like 11 households living in a very small property in backyard sheds and in basements. It was very distressing to see people living in those kinds of conditions, and we know that's happening quite a bit in San Mateo. So I would just urge you to support this project. It provides almost 1,000 units of housing, and those are going to be homes for future residents. I think the design is really beautiful. I like the Eichler style, and I really think this project has really exemplary amenities, as previous commenters have explained. It's really wonderful to live walking distance to a grocery store, to childcare, to bike depot, and have bike lanes. So I think this is going to be a really wonderful addition to San Mateo. And I understand that there is anxiety about a change this big. But I think we also want to think about all those benefits that are going to come years down the line when we have almost 1,000 new families who are able to be part of this community. And we can support that inclusive, walkable future that we all want to move towards. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelsey.
My next speaker is Jonathan Stern. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Sure, just needed to unmute. Thank you, commissioners. My name is Jonathan Stern. I'm the Director of Acquisitions and Planning at Bridge Housing. Bridge Housing is a nonprofit affordable housing developer that's been building in San Francisco and San Mateo County for almost 40 years. We want to applaud the commission on shaping this project, as well as California Coastal. We think it's really important to provide this almost 1,000 units of all levels of housing near transit in a TOD setting. We also concur that providing all 73 units in a single building is beneficial. For one, it does, as stated before, it has financial benefits. It allows us access to federal tax credits and perhaps state funding programs such as the multifamily housing program through the state. And those resources will make it easier to finance and build the affordable units. We also like that by concentrating the units, it provides the close proximity to services, both by having daycare on site and by having the pedestrian improvements to the nearby YMCA. And it is very similar to a project that we're already building for the city of San Mateo. We have a project, Montero, in Bay Meadows, that will provide 68 units of mostly very low or lower housing, affordable housing, that's under construction, nearing completion. So again, the amenities we think are excellent. The access to all of the site amenities for affordable residents, the on-site daycare, and the close access to the YMCA are important. I just want to say that we have been in discussions and consultations with California Coastal for well over 2 years. And we would be very proud to continue forward and finalize agreement with the developer and be part of building 73 more units of affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
My next speaker is Martin.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a homeowner in San Mateo. I live downtown and I bike down Delaware quite often on my way to Bay Meadows. I'm strongly in support of this project. This is the right land use at this location. Putting housing next to transit, jobs, and retail is exactly what we need to be doing in San Mateo. I know we have problems with traffic, and part of the solution is to get out of our cars, and the way to do that is to put things close together so people can walk or bike and not have to drive. When I bike around San Mateo, the intersections surrounding this site are some of the worst spots I go through, and I think the opportunity to improve that is an additional positive. This is right for our planet too. We have to get greenhouse gas emissions down, and this is the right way to do it. Did I mention we get a lot of sorely needed, deeply affordable housing units as well? This is a great project. Within the plan, it's well laid out with open and community spaces. It's got good presence on the street in Massing. It will be an enormous improvement over empty parking lots we have right now. It's a win, 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 maybe a few more wins. Thank you for your time, and please approve this project.
Thank you, Martin.
My next speaker is Doug Cheshire. Doug, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Okay, good evening. Chair Mallory and Commissioners, my name is Doug Cheshire. I'm a field representative with the Carpenters Local 217, and on behalf of 1,800 members here in San Mateo, I ask that you approve the Concord Passage project. You know, through a collaborative process, California Coastal Properties has proposed a project that has all the right hallmarks that San Mateo and its citizens desire in a project of this scale. From affordable workforce housing with ample open space to an on-site child care facility and the preservation of a ballet theater, California Coastal Properties has made a commitment to this community. And this is not the only commitment. By partnering with a responsible union contractor, California Coastal Properties is making an investment to this community. One that will provide hundreds of good paying union jobs with healthcare and retirement in the construction industry. One that will provide an opportunity for local apprentices, including women and minorities, to begin a career in the construction industry, and that will also help build tomorrow's skilled labor workforce. This will also allow for members to live and work within their own community, not having to make long commutes to get to work. California Coastal Properties has proposed a development that is outlined, fits the goals of the 2030 General Plan, and in conjunction with the community and local labor will bring forward a project that San Mateo will be proud of for years to come. So again, I urge you guys to push this forward to the City Council, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug.
My next speaker is Samuel Deutsch.
Good evening, commissioners, and thank you for your time today. My name is Sam Deutsch, and I am a resident of the Bay Area, and I'm just calling to express my full support for this project. We've heard a lot of great comments already from people supporting the project, but one additional thing that I think is important to bring up and really emphasize is the fact that Caltrain is currently undergoing a transformational electrification, which will mean that trains will be coming every 10 minutes powered by electricity and traveling at 80 miles per hour, whisking people up and down the peninsula. And once that's an option, I think it's a no-brainer to build out the housing so that people can live near the train and take the train and commute more sustainably and help the environment, as opposed to living further out in the suburbs, and as a result, increasing carbon emissions in low density single family housing. So I just want to reiterate, it looks like a great project. And I think that the timing of this will be perfect with Caltrain electrification. And I hope the future of the peninsula looks like a lot of projects like this in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
My next speaker is Kuehler. Kuehler, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, there we go. Hell, I am a lifetime San Mateo resident, current Hayward Park resident, even more so. So I'd like to echo support for this project. It gives us so many needed homes. It's a far better land use than the current empty, mostly empty parking lot that's currently in the area. I do know there's currently some like cheaper option retail around there, and I hope some of that can be kept around in the future because I relied on some of that in the past. But overall, it's excellent. Thank you for doing this. It's a large project, and it's going to be good to see that in the area.
Thank you.
My next speaker is Jordan Grimes.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Jordan Grimes. I'm speaking tonight as both a lead member of Peninsula for Everyone, but also as a lifelong resident of 19th Avenue Park, the neighborhood adjacent to the project, and I am, of course, here in strong support. I just really want to commend Brian and California Coastal. They have absolutely bent over backwards to make this an incredible project that we can all be proud of. The design is gorgeous. The nods to Joseph Eichler were particularly appreciated by me and other 19th Avenue Park residents. The on-site ballet studio, the performance space, the childcare, the park space, and especially the affordable housing are all so badly needed and are such an inspired and better use than the aging strip mall and the giant surface parking lot that are there now. Many of my neighbors are very supportive. You heard several of them tonight. I know others have complaints. I do just want to say that many of them, having grown up in this neighborhood, many of them had the same complaints about Station Park Green. And now I often see them, see those same people getting sandwiches at the deli across the street and enjoying those same sandwiches at the picnic tables in the park across the street. I'm also very glad the 7-Eleven is staying and is being remodeled. Many lower income folks in the neighborhood and in the community use that as a grocery store. And I think keeping it is essential. So I'm very appreciative that that's staying. The one thing I am disappointed by is that the city council decided to trade the moderate units for traffic improvements. I really disagree that moderate units aren't valuable. I think when marketed correctly, they absolutely serve an important purpose, and I'm very disappointed the council jumped to road improvements instead of pursuing more affordable units. I think it's especially embarrassing given BMR waiting lists being miles long, and I want to know if there's anything that could be done at this point to pursue more BMR units of any type instead of road improvements. So that's really it. This is a really great project for the neighborhood. I'm very happy to see it, and I can't wait for it to be built. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
The last hand I see raised is Isabella Chu.
Hi, my name is Isabella Chu, and I lived in San Mateo for several years prior to my current home in Redwood City. However, as I'm sure you're well aware, everything that happens up and down the peninsula affects us all, particularly with regard to the production of housing. This is a fantastic project, and I want to speak in strong support. I did want to comment on a couple of things. I think an earlier speaker talked about the noise level, and I think it's important to note the thing that makes cities loud isn't people, it's actually cars. And so anything you can do to reduce the number of cars, slow the cars, or generally mute the cars will improve the quality of life and obviously the health and safety of everyone. The second thing is I wanted to echo Mr. Grimes' comments about trading the convenience of cars or motorists for the homes of people. I think a lot of land use policy in the U.S. have prioritized cars over people for decades. And if we can trade housing for people for the throughput of cars, I think that's a really good trade. So I would encourage you to consider rescinding that and getting more moderate rate units. But overall, this is a fantastic project, and I wanted to speak in strong support.
Thank you.
At this time, I see no more hands raised.
Thank you, Erin. All right, we'll circle back to, we'll close our public comment period at this point, and we'll bring it back to the commission for comments and additional questions. John, why don't we start with you, since you passed your time the first time?
Perfect. Through the chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you to staff and the applicant and all the great public inputs. This is a big and important project, and I think the amount of effort put into it has been incredible. And overall, the project to me is the highest quality that San Mateo has seen to date. I have a couple of questions for staff. And the first one is on the exclusion of the moderate rate housing. I know that has been a selling point by the applicant for quite a while. Having the additional 38 units of moderately priced housing, or 36 or 38 units, really was a point of pride, I think, for this applicant. And I think a lot of the public also supported that. I did specifically think it was a great idea. We had been told on June 9th that it was still in the project, and then all of a sudden, by June 29th, it had been taken out of the project and suggested to the city council as part of the project agreement. And I would just like some clarification on why that happened and what happened in those 20 days from what we were presented and city council was given an option to eliminate it.
Sure, I'd be happy to start us off. Thank you for the question. There was extensive discussion at the June 29th city council meeting, circulating around the discussion of the moderate units and whether to put those funds, or the subsidy of those funds toward traffic improvements. Sandy Council, the city's housing manager, can provide greater detail on this. And generally, I'm hearing feedback, I apologize. Sandy Council, the city's housing manager, can provide greater detail. But generally, what was discussed at that meeting was that moderate income units have been difficult to lease given their price point. The council provided feedback that would be more fitting to focus the subsidy of those moderate units toward traffic improvements, because that was one of the identified impacts of the project.
I'm sorry, that was what was the last comment, Rendell?
That the council provided feedback and you agreed to focus the subsidy of the moderate income units toward traffic improvements as opposed to the moderate income units, because traffic improvements, traffic was one of the identified impacts caused by the project.
Okay. Anything to add, Sandy?
Yes. So over the last couple years, the median incomes that the state has published for our county have risen significantly, about 20% over the last couple years. And since the way that we calculate affordable rents is based on median incomes, for the moderate income, one bedroom unit is now pricing out at $3,000 for the affordable moderate income units. Rental units. And as Rendell mentioned, we have a couple properties that have moderate income units, and trying to find people who think that, you know, a one bedroom should be $3,000 is affordable has been a difficult sell, frankly. And it's just a function of the median income for the area rising and the way we calculate rents. It's based on the definitions we use, the formulas that the state of California uses. And so that's it. Moderate income units are now affordable to people who make like, $150,000. And we're finding that they can find those units in the market now, not brand new luxury units, but they can find modest older buildings for those rents. And so the moderate income units just aren't very affordable by definition at this point in time.
So Sandy, you are the expert. So in a long-term view, say taking these units and using them as moderately affordable over 30 years, the market's going to fluctuate throughout that amount of time, and not having them as an option to me seems like it might be somewhat short-sighted, where the biggest push that the city council and the public has had over the last couple of years is for more affordable housing. And do these units also apply into would they be applicable to any requirements for the RHNA allocations?
Yeah, they would count toward the RHNA allocation.
And the RHNA allocations do have specific numbers to meet for affordable housing?
Yeah, the RHNA numbers have targets for very low income, for low income, and for moderate income. So no matter what affordable units are in this project, they will be counted toward our RHNA. Our RHNA numbers are so high that no matter what we provide, unfortunately, it's not going to make a big dent.
Sure.
But it's hard to say whether over time those moderate income units would be helpful or not. It's really hard to predict. And when we look at the past affordable units that we've been able to put in our inventory over time, we've had a variety of income targeted units. We have very low income rentals, we have lower income rentals, and we have moderate income rentals. And the moderate income levels have been difficult to rent, frankly, for many, many years. I'd say for the past 10 years. So I don't know if it will change in the future, to your question, but they're not real useful right now on the rental side.
I've got a couple of questions. Do we have a traffic consultant on the call, or would I direct these to Public Works?
We do. We have Gary Black of Hexagon Traffic Consultants, and we also have Bethany Lopez, Senior Engineer of Public Works.
Okay, great. To the chair, I have been trying to get to the bottom of the traffic analysis, and as far as I'm able to ascertain, there appear to be 3 sections that are being impacted by this project and generating substantial increases at these 3 intersections. One would be Delaware Street and Corncar Drive, PM hours, Delaware Street and 19th Avenue, AM and PM peak hours, and the YMC driveway in 19th Avenue, peak hours only. Is that an accurate assumption on the intersections that are directly affected by this project?
This is Gary Black with Hexagon. I can answer that. Bethany can jump in, I guess. But I would say that's, Commissioner Ebner, that's more of a mathematical artifact than impacts at those particular locations, I would say. What's happening, as I'm sure you're aware, or what used to be happening before the COVID epidemic, is that the traffic really on 19th Avenue was just backing up the entire length and then almost causing gridlock conditions in that area. And so it's really sort of hard to attribute that to particular intersections. It's a system, it's an entire corridor that kind of works as a system. When you do the math, those particular intersections pop up as being impacted, but really it's better to think of it as just adding traffic to that 19th Avenue corridor would constitute what used to be called an impact, but now under the new CEQA rules, we don't call that an impact. We call that inconsistent with the general plan that seeks to maintain level of service D at intersections in the city. And so the traffic study the city undertook a study of the 19th Avenue corridor, and that study yielded a number of recommendations for improvement to help with the traffic flow in that corridor. And some of those are described in the traffic study. And that's what was explained earlier, where the applicant would make a contribution towards the cost of those improvements, which were estimated at a total cost of just over $9.5 million.
Thank you. I appreciate that description. What I see that the city has done, and I have never seen this used prior, was I think the term is a specialized analysis. I forget the exact term. And like I said, I've never seen that before. And I can think of areas in the city where the exact type of implications happen throughout areas, specifically the Hillsdale Boulevard, which I live near. That is impacted as a full corridor, but I've never seen that corridor analyzed as the 19th Avenue corridor has been analyzed, nor have any developers been asked to make any contributions to alleviate traffic bottlenecks that weren't adjacent to their property. So I see it's a new technique or new study that I have never seen. So one question, and I don't know if this would be to Gabrielle. I think for this project to meet the general plan guidelines, that it would need to pay TIF fees and also whatever impacts that might be directly associated with this project. And that then it would be fall under the guidance of approval as it pertains to the general plan requirements. Would that be correct?
Yes, there are some general plan sections that we're working to amend right now that talk in terms of CEQA, and they say that an impact that applicants can only be asked to pay extra beyond the TIF if their project can be shown to have a significant impact pursuant to CEQA. And in light of the VMT changes, the city's in the process of amending those general plan provisions. There is one general plan provision that stands alone that says projects have to maintain a level of service D, and so no delay of 45 seconds or more. I have talked to Public Works about this. I think the challenge with this location is that it's hard to discern what traffic is a function of the existing development and what traffic is a function of this proposed project.
And if you don't mind, I'd like to expand on that a little bit. The fair share that was attributed to this project for those transportation improvements relating to the degraded intersections was estimated at $2.2 million. So if we were in that LOS and the old CEQA rules, we would have applied a mitigation measure of $2.2 million to contribute to traffic improvements. And what the developer has elected to do is make a contribution through the development agreement. And that contribution actually exceeds that fair share allocation. It's closer to 2.6 million. And then in addition, based on the city council direction, they're allocating the subsidy that would have gone to the moderate income units as well to traffic improvements. So we get that overall contribution of 7.5 million, but you can kind of break that down and take a look at they're paying more than their fair share of the transportation improvements. So I just want to expand on that.
Thank you, Lisa. That was kind of where I was going to, in trying to understand with level of service and VMT. I know that the VMT did not show any significant impacts at all. And then it fell to the LOS being met, the issues being met with the LOS, specifically at those three intersections. And I know you cannot physically separate those three intersections from the 19th Avenue corridor, yet legally, if those three intersections are brought to a level of service that is not impacted, then that should have been the end of the amount of money that was allocated from this project directly to traffic mitigation, which brings me to my original question was, with the $5.1 million that was allocated for moderate rate housing, we have now taken that money and put it into traffic mitigation. And I think that I would like to have some type of discussion to understand if there is any way to possibly use some of that money for traffic mitigation, some of it for low-cost housing, and not have one or the other. Look at a solution that might solve a variety of problems rather than traffic over the low-cost housing component, which the city was not paying for. So that's kind of where what I'm looking at.
And just to respond briefly, the council did discuss options in their staff report. Staff presented several options. One is, do you want to maintain that moderate income housing as proposed by the applicant? Do you want to maybe split it, have part of the funds go towards transportation and then maybe have half of those moderate income units, or have all of the funds dedicated? And it was a very good conversation. I mean, they struggled with it. Obviously, affordable housing is very important to the council as well as the community. But in the end, this intersection and this corridor is so impacted. They really wanted to see meaningful improvements to the corridor and prioritize the funds towards that. The council can certainly provide comments to the city council. As you know, this is a recommendation to the council, and I'm sure they would value your input in that item.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Lisa. So I have been a huge supporter of this project from day one, since Brian's brought it to us. He's done everything that he said he was going to do. It's incredible. I have never seen this from a developer. This is the only component that I felt was not followed through, and it wasn't because of him, it was because of the agreement with the city council. And I think it's a component that degrades the project to a certain degree. And I think it's an important component. We, a planning commission, do not get to direct what happens in a project agreement, yet it seems shocking to me that 20 days after we were still told there were 36 other low-cost units in there, that they disappeared. And I just would love to see some way of using some of the monies that are being allocated for this project used to keep some of those units in place. I had a couple of other questions. I haven't seen in the documentation, and Brian had mentioned earlier that he had around $100 million figure on different public amenities and fees that have been allocated to this project, which obviously is a very substantial amount of money. I've heard that the park fee is roughly $20 million. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. So the park impact fee is meant to offset the project's impact on city parks. And there is an option for the city to entertain some reduction in that fee, given that the applicant is providing on-site amenities. However, the minimum required of the project with the park impact fee would be 19 million.
Okay. So, you know, since all of these different departments work for the same city, you know, if there is any possibility of using some of those park fees as down payment to the affordable housing component, I do know that there's you know, over 6 acres of open space, 4 acres open space to the public, and those improvements within that project, excluding property costs, land costs, are roughly $15 million. Also, you're going to have a minimum amount of children that are living at this facility, maybe 150 kids, which I think would be what your park component is targeted towards. And I don't see how that large of a fund is reasonable or necessary, that if we couldn't use some of it to offset the traffic mitigation and keep the affordable housing stock in place.
Well, I can offer some information on that. The city is constrained by the state Quimby Act, which dictates how we collect park fees. And we're authorized to collect enough fees to provide, and I can't remember the figure, whether it's 3 acres per 1,000 or 4 acres per 1,000 residents. But we are limited in using the funds only for the purpose for which they were collected, which would be to provide park space.
Okay, and there's no way that there's any in lieu fee because of the production of the on-site park space?
No, the city does provide a credit for the provision of park space because that takes some of the burden off of the city to provide the park space. And so there is a municipal code section that gets into how much the credit is and how that is determined.
Perfect. Thank you. I don't have any other questions, Chair.
Thank you, John. Ramiro, would you like to go next?
I do have just a question for Rendo. There was one of our attendees talked about a sound wall, the sound wall barrier on 19th Avenue, and there being a sound survey or sound report. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, so as the public commenter had mentioned, the city was contacted by some residents at the 19th Avenue Park neighborhood just adjacent to the site, requesting to see, what the noise impact would be by the project, and the city's response was, there's really 2 ways the city could require the developer to construct a sound wall to mitigate the noise impact. One is through mitigation of identified CEQA impacts and the nexus between the impact caused by the project. So the EIR, again released a few months ago, concluded that the noise levels around the site exist and exceed the noise limits due to road noise, and that this project doesn't worsen those impacts on the sensitive residential uses. Representatives from the city's CEQA consultant, David J. Powers, is present in case the commission wanted more detail on that. The second way that the city could legally require construction of the wall is through public benefit, as we just discussed earlier. That was a discussion with the council on the 29th. There is an existing unified fence along Concord Drive, along the 19th Avenue neighborhood, that was provided as a public benefit for the Concord offices, where the Rakuten offices exist. Again, as mentioned, for this project, the city council in June supported having the developer's monetary contribution be funneled toward traffic improvements. And so because there weren't any identified CEQA impacts on noise, and given the council's direction on the financial contribution as a public benefit, the city is not in the position to legally require for the developer to construct the wall. Not to say the developer can't propose building the wall, but I think it's important that the commission know the city's legal constraints.
Okay, that was only. Thank you, Rendo. That was the only follow-up question. We're doing comments, final comments, or
we can do comments.
Yeah. So I am. I want to thank the developer and the applicant for all the community benefits that they're providing for the city. With the extended of the over 4 acres of public open spaces for the residents and also for the community as well, for the addition of the 73 low-income units that it's been providing. It's creating more housing inventory for very low-income individuals for the city of San Mateo. I like that they're looking to create more of a bike and pedestrian plan to create more bike pathways around the area, and they're very cognizant on actually pedestrians throughout the Depot Way on both on Concord and on South Delaware as well. So the overall design, I think I stated in the previous meeting, I like the overall design. It'll be a great addition to the other properties that are adjacent to it. My only concern with this project, and I think this has been brought up from commenters and individuals who have submitted letters of support and against it, is the traffic and all the traffic that it's going to be. As of right now, the traffic mitigation is very saturated, and understanding that the improvements of the $7.5 million that the developer is putting into traffic enhancements, it's not going to deter or lower the traffic congestion, but it's just going to maintain it at the current levels it has now. Understanding that we can't build more roads, we can't build more to allow for more traffic. So that is my only negative. And also the deletion of the moderate to income housing. Understanding that our housing market needs more inventory, and I'm not sure if we have any recourse or we can provide any feedback, as this is just a recommendation and not a vote, to the city council to rethink what that would look like to add more low-income housing or more moderate housing. So those were my comments.
Thank you. Margaret?
Actually, we are voting on this tonight, right?
Yes.
Okay, just to clarify. I do have 2 quick design questions, and then I have some comments. I have a question about whether or not the signage is illuminated, and specifically, I mean the vertical fins. There's, I think, 2 of them, one on Grant and one on Concar, and they're vertical fins with kind of like vertical signage. One says Passages at San Mateo, and one says something about, the ballet studio or something. So the reason, they are directly adjacent to windows of units. And I feel like I might be repeating myself from again with this question from earlier, but Rendo, can you tell me if those are illuminated or not?
I'll defer to the applicant or the architect about the details of the signs, but just so the commission's aware, the signage shown in the plans are kind of for information only. By approving the project, you're not approving the signs necessarily. The Muni code requires that the applicant provide a separate sign package.
Got it.
But Peter, did you want to respond to the sign details? Do you know them now?
Yeah, in a very similar fashion. I mean, to Rendell's point, these are really, this is going to be a deferred submittal that we would study that light bleed very carefully. The intention is not to disrupt those units, but obviously provide the ample enough lighting to make the sign effective for whatever the use is going to be. So it's a good point.
Okay. Yeah, I would I would think it would be nice if they were not illuminated signs next to those windows. But so that was one question. Maybe that was it. Yeah, I guess that was it. So I have a few comments, but I guess I just want to start by saying that this project literally represents years of collaboration. So I'm really impressed with all of the information, all the hard work on, the part of the applicant, the architects, the landscape architects. I really liked that package as well. Of course, staff and all of these different people on my screen that are part of this process from the city and consulting to the city. So kudos to everyone for really working hard to get a project that is a good balance of requirements for the residents and the people of San Mateo. I think there's this tonight and previous meetings are a good example of really good discussions that have taken place regarding traffic mitigations, and all the other kinds of entitlements that are part of this package that we've all been talking about. So, from childcare to affordable housing. And I recognize there are some compromises with regards to a few things, but in particular the moderate income units. And I feel like the housing managers, I forget the person's name, I'm looking on my screen, but that was a very helpful explanation to me in terms of how to make the numbers work and how to make them attractive enough to be able to actually fill the units. So, so I understand there's a lot of, kind of trade-offs and negotiations that take place. But in general, I would say that we are fortunate to have a project like this come before us where the developer is, and all of the team members are really working together to put together a really exceptional project for San Mateo. Granted, it's going to be a big change for that area, and I recognize that. I guess I just want to, I think that was the extent of my comments. Let me just make sure and see if there's anything else. I think I think most of the other things that I had comments on or notes on have been addressed over the course of this discussion. So I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Well, I will start off by giving my appreciation to everyone who has written and called in, attended in person the meetings at City Hall throughout this whole project. Everyone had such interesting things to say. The concerns were well-founded and well-presented, and the positive statements as well. So thank you to everyone for doing that throughout. I'd like to say thank you to Brian and Peter for the changes that were made to the plans since our last meeting. The more strongly stated traffic concerns in the middle of the plaza and the changing of the white blocks. Thank you. It looks really great. So I very much appreciate that. I too am concerned about the removal of the moderate housing. I was surprised by that as well. I think Commissioner Ebnetter made some very good statements, and Commissioner Maldonado. I think the term that was used that struck me most was inventory. And we are so short of housing in general, whether or not it is affordable or moderate or market rate. We are still short of housing. So I think it's too bad to have those removed from the project, which leads me to the next issue that I have, which is where the money did go, which was the transportation issues and the gridlock along the 19th Avenue Fashion Island corridor. And I know that Public Works has plans to address this, and that I do hope that the issues can be alleviated. But I was very concerned that there were so many intersections affected through the LOS report. So that is a concern to me, that we are adding to one of the most congested areas in the city. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that Public Works can address that and come up with a positive solution. And I'm also concerned and want to make sure that we consider the dewatering issues that are potential hazards to that area. And I also know that those will be addressed, but those are still concerns of mine. So just in summary, this project has so many amazing amenities and a prime location. And just no doubt this is going to be a workable and livable community with pedestrian and bike access. It really is an opportunity to have San Mateo really show as a leader in developing positive communities. So I do want to thank the developer and the architects for all that they've done, and the staff for all the work they've done, and the commissioners for all the time they've spent reading all of the reports. So I would like to let Commissioner Ebnetter make one more statement. So I will stop now and turn it back to John.
Through the chair. I had a couple comments, which I think dovetailed with a couple of the speakers and how it had to do with using some of the traffic impact fees around alternate forms of mobility and protecting walkers and promoting use of transportation other than private vehicles. I think that's going to be key to that whole area of the city. I can see how well it works in the Bay Meadows project. It's very safe. It's very easy to navigate through those streets. This is a different animal because you've got 4 or 5 different large components there. But I think as the city, integrates those different neighborhoods together, the more money they put into alternate types of mobility, the better off and safer the communities will be at large. I would love that this commission could leave a unified message to the city council to please consider looking at the development agreement as it pertains to the $9.6 million, which are going into traffic mitigation along the corridor, and see if there's some way that we could keep all, if not some, of the moderate housing as part of this development. I think that it's important, and I would hope that the city council would consider an option other than everything going to the traffic mitigation. I think I have no negative comments on this project whatsoever. I've now followed it for almost 2 years. Brian has done everything he said he was going to do. They brought vision, perseverance, and innovation to this project, above and beyond anything anyone could have expected. The multiple amount of public benefits is incredible, and I think you guys just completely knocked it out of the park. I wish you the best of luck starting it, getting it moving, it will be a great addition to the neighborhood. I do feel that the amount of housing and commercial in the area is going to have some specific challenges that this project will not be able to solve, and it will definitely take a joint effort to make it a completely safe and accessible location in our city. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you, John. Okay, Rendell, could we have up on the screen the items to be considered tonight? And there are 3 items?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have anything else you'd like to discuss or have any further questions on what our motion will look like?
I do not.
No.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to make this recommendation?
I'd be glad to make a motion. Recommendation that the Planning Commission recommends City Council approval of the project by making the following motions. 1, recommend adoption of the supplemental environmental impact report as adequate to assess the environmental impacts of the project based on the findings for approval in Exhibit A of Attachment 1, and 2, recommend approval of the Site Plan and Architectural Review, SPAR, Site Development Plan Application, SDPA, and Vesting Tentative Map to allow the development of 961 residential units and 40,000 square feet of commercial space with associated common area based on the findings for approval in Exhibit A of Attachment 1 and the subject to the conditions of approval in Exhibit B of Attachment 1. 3, recommend approval of the development agreement included in Attachment 2.
And is there a second?
I second that.
Thank you. Erin, may we have a voice vote, please?
Of course. Commission Chair Mallory?
Yay.
Vice Chair Maldonado?
Yay.
Commissioner Ebnetter?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Okay, and the motion passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Commissioners and Chair Mallory. I appreciate all your assistance with this.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to reports and announcements. Are there any comments from staff?
Good evening. Yes, so we have, just want to announce a couple upcoming council items on August 17th. It's actually quite a packed agenda related to planning items. First, they'll be hearing the item that you heard tonight. The council will be considering it. The council will also be considering the Mid-Penn project on the same night. They will also be considering the general plan outreach and contract amendment and the housing element contract. So there's a lot of large items on that night, so it'll be a long night, but very interesting night as well. Also, the next Planning Commission on August 11th will be canceled, so the next meeting will be August 25th. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Erin. Are there any more questions or comments or announcements by the commissioners?
None from me.
None.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.